Welcome to the Disrupt Education Podcast. Alli Privitt. I'm Peter Hostrawser. How's it going, Alli?
It's pretty good day. You and I were talking right before we started recording on today's kind of like the time of recording this is my 2 year like solo skydiving anniversary, like when I started that whole journey. And it's like 2 years of coming off of full-time teaching, and it's like bringing up all the feels. And and I'm like, by the time this comes out, I'll actually probably be really close to being a tandem instructor.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just like going full on this summer with skydiving goals because it is the on season. And yeah, we're kind of getting into transitions and uh how to keep crushing it from a new perspective with this episode and some of our upcoming episodes. So I'm excited. How are you doing, Peter?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Starting the new gig, just enjoying it. It's very innovative. It's a different job, kind of, also teaching, but working with businesses and setting a lot of opportunities up, going deeper into the internship for high school students realm. It is seriously exciting, and I like that. And that kind of brings us into our guest today, which every summer, if you are a avid listener of the Disrupt Education podcast, we grab a few students who had just finished their high school journey, basically their K through 12 journey, and they're fresh, they're ready to go, they're making moves. This person is definitely a person making moves. And I had her in my internship class for a senior year, and boy, did I learn some things from her. Samanta is with us today. Hey, Samantha, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
You're doing great, doing great. So I kind of gave you a quick little intro there, but if you don't mind
Yeah.
giving the listeners an intro of who you are and kind of what you're about.
Yeah. So my name's Sam. I'm 18. I just graduated high school and I'm going into Moraine Valley this upcoming fall for marketing and then hopefully transferring out somewhere local to continue that degree. As of right now, I'm a chiropractor's assistant and I'm working on some things outside of that office, as in like my own TikTok, which is at Grow Up Sam, if you want to check that out. But
Yeah,
and yeah, that's kind of a little snippet of me.
definitely, definitely. Jump in, Allie. What questions you got?
Well, I'm interested, before we started recording, you kind of had like a little buzz against millennials, which, that's fine. I have no problem. No problem
She
being
didn't say
labeled
anything
a
about
millennial.
Gen X, so I'm
I'm
good.
sorry.
No, but it's actually such a great place to start.
Mhm.
So like you just graduated high school and there is, you're Gen Z and like in your prime, you got all these ideas and innovation. And I remember feeling that kind of buzz, like getting, out of high school, getting in the workplace, trying things, and then coming up against kind of like push pull, like people were stuck in their ways. And I'm like, can't we innovate? Can't we change? And I'm curious, like, you were talking about it, maybe in a career type setting, but was that part of your educational journey? Did you feel like teachers or your school journey felt a little like, I don't know, millennial or Gen X, or it's like, how, tell us about your educational journey and where you kind of felt like the push or pull, like your generation versus other generations.
I feel like that's way more common than people think. And I think that because it's so normalized nowadays that we kind of overlook it. In a way, I feel like there's always still an age gap, I guess you could say, between your instructor and then the students. So I feel like some teachers do a really good job of connecting with the students and actually keeping up with the trends. And I see this more often if they're part of extracurriculars, like they're a coach of some sort of sport or if they have kids of their own that are around our age. If they don't, then that gap is very prevalent. Then there's definitely like a big divide as far as like, okay, I'm gonna have this one meme that was from 2016 going all the way up to like present day and keep going with it. I know there's a couple teachers that like to actually copy and paste memes into like math problems and stuff, which I think as like a student, it it's worth like appreciating the effort behind that. But then sometimes it's like, okay, well then if you can make the effort to do that, then make the effort to actually like go above and beyond and actually like see what's relevant in our day. So that's kind of how I view that.
Did I have any memes? I'm trying to think. I don't think I had memes. I
No,
think you guys
you,
may. I
I was
used
gonna
to
say,
assign it, actually. I used to
yeah,
assign it, like make a meme on this. So that's
I
funny.
will say you as a teacher did better with keeping up with kind of the current trends of things. I know that I've had a couple of teachers where they're just like, there was this one teacher who was a social studies teacher, and I don't want to call her out, but I mean, she took jokes that were from years prior and went with it. Like that was like she could make a whole curriculum about that alone. Like she made it like it was her second personality. So, yeah,
Just to put this in perspective, you're absolutely right. I mean, I wasn't really a coach, but I was also I announced a lot of games and stuff like that, and I went to a lot of activities and things like that. But I also have two kids who are your age. So,
exactly.
and then
So,
picking Allie, our dinner time conversations when I would drop like you know, Gen Z something, my wife would look at me and like, what? Like, so it was, yeah. Then I knew it hit,
yeah.
but no, that's interesting. I actually had this conversation today with my colleague at my new gig, and we were talking about some different things. Um, what in school would you have liked? And we'll just talk high school for right now, but like,
Yeah.
what would you have liked to take more, been able to grab more ownership in? So like, like when I see something like that, I'm like, well, why don't you guys come up with a meme for this math problem? Let's have some fun there, something like that. That's the first thing that enters my mind, but sometimes I forget that. What would be maybe one or two of the biggest things that you would want to like take ownership of?
Although it is hard to take ownership of it because it has a very big like curriculum like framework that like you have to follow, but math, for example, I feel like math is very straightforward where it's like you can't really take ownership of it. You can't make math your own because it's a very logical based class that like everyone has to take.
Mhm.
But I wish that there were maybe some fun classes of math that you could still get credits for. I mean, we had, I believe there was something with technology where like you could do construction in math,
Yeah.
which I think stuff like that is really cool and I mean relevant, especially if you're going to go into the trades. But as far as other math classes that you're taking, like math one, math two, math three, so many of like schools locally around other than Stag don't have that. They have geometry, trigonometry. So I wish that there was a way to make those classes have a little bit more flexibility and a little bit more fun with them. And another thing I wish we could take ownership with is also some science classes. I feel like if you're taking once again, it's a very logical base. Like if you're taking something with statistics and numbers and all that stuff, it has to be very framework. But like chemistry, for example, I took it twice and did not pass either time. I sucked at chemistry and I still hate chemistry to this day. And that's because teachers who ran those classes never made anything fun and never let the kids take any ownership over stuff. I mean, you had your fun experiments here and there, but it's not like we were the ones being like, "Hey, we'd really love to see this," or maybe we saw a post of this and it went viral and we want to try that too, or something like that. Given that our school had so many resources and stuff like that could have been done, it just wasn't and wasn't even like vocalized to any extent.
I'm gonna throw you a huge curveball right now.
Okay.
Guess what kind of teacher Allie was before she left the industry?
Chemistry.
Bingo. Which is great though. I can guarantee
Hilarious.
you she's a different teacher. I mean,
Yeah.
go ahead, Allie.
No, I mean, like I don't disagree with like the math and the sciences that are numerically based needing way more integration and like relevancy. I mean, I know it was a huge part of my classroom to connect everything that we were learning to the outside world. I could have done it even more and like if I ever go back, would totally promote that kind of like get outside and experience chemistry type. You can do the basics while still experiencing it.
Right.
And I think it's interesting to hear you say that because from what I understand, the high school that you went to is for the most part traditional. Like
Hmm.
it's not a, you know, wilderness camp style school, your subjects and you go to classes on a schedule and you have homework and, the basic type of educational model. So for for you with your marketing interest and your TikTok creator and like what would you say for the educational model as a whole? Like, how is it lagging? Like I really want to push on this. Like, you have this fresh perspective. Like, how would you market education? How would you change it? Like, we love that kind of like you just finished. So, like, if you could go back and like have a different experience, what would you want? What would you see as beneficial that could have helped you pass chemistry or, enjoy a different subject, better?
Yeah, so I feel like the first year I truly enjoyed high school was my senior year. Given half my classes were cut off because I finished all my credits, but I feel like if there was a way to make things more self-paced,
Mm,
because yeah, you have your honors classes, yeah, you have your AP classes, but everything still, like we've been talking about, has some sort of structure that needed to be followed. And I feel like if I was able to get a class done within, let's say, a month, because I just knew the coursework right off the top of my head, I'm just naturally good at math or naturally good at this or that. I feel like high school would have been 1,000 times more enjoyable. Given the fact that there's so many people that are held back with their full potential with all the time that's relatively wasted in school. I feel like it's not fair for individuals who are 13 years old, 14 years old, entering high school, have all these ideas in their head, and now they still have to wait another 4 years to even start any of it. So
mhm,
I feel like creating maybe kind of like a college class schedule as well would have been a really cool idea because, in college now you can create your own schedule, see what works for you. You're taking credits that you specifically need for that specific degree. There's a lot of people also who enter high school and know exactly what they want to do with their life. Like believe it or not. Also, given when I entered high school, I did want to become like a nurse or go into the healthcare field, which that has changed significantly. But then also with exposure, I was able to kind of grasp what I wanted to learn, and I could have taken initiative far earlier ahead of my time. So,
Yeah. It is interesting because, being an educator in the same class as Sam, I can tell you that, yeah, there were days where you're just like, I'm done. Like, I'm done with this stuff. Like, why am I here? Right.
yeah.
And that's hard for an educator to kind of balance out. And you can almost feel like the burnout of a student, and then you also feel it as an educator, yet you still have to kind of go through the daily routine, the daily grind when like you have some students who like that structure and like that guidance. But you also have other students like when Sam would come into the room, just telling you this, and our listeners this is that you were done. Like you had your stuff done. You were like, okay, yeah, I just checked the box. Let's move on. Maybe not in chemistry, but like no, in other classes, I really like that kind of exposure. So I want to kind of dive in then to like the medical field, to advertising and marketing. What happened there? What was the key that actually changed your idea on that? Because I think that's very important to somebody's educational journey. You said the word exposure, which I am a huge fan of, exposing students to so
mhm.
much real life stuff, whether it's kind of contained in the school or a hybrid of that. What happened? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I feel like going back to kind of that whole exposure thing, when you're first even in middle school, I guess you could say, there's an awkward period of time where like you're realizing that you're getting close to the college stage and you're like, oh, well, crap, what do I do now? And I feel like once you do enter into the realm of high school, like, the pressure kind of begins to like go like heavier and heavier, heavier and heavier on you. And with that being said, I feel like nobody knows a lot of the things that you have to do in order to get into the specific work field that you want to go into. I mean, when I
Mm,
was wanting to go into healthcare, my initial was I want to be a cardiothoracic surgeon. I'm gonna dedicate 20 years of my life just for education,
Mhm.
figure out what I want to do, and boom, bam. But then there's also all of these different lifestyle factors that come into play. Well, I want to travel for this long. I want to move in with my significant other. I want to adopt a pet, or well, there's so many different things that like come along in life that you don't realize can also play a part into this. But starting freshman year, I was super into sciencey based things, and I was slowly realizing that this is a lot of hard work. And I want to make money fast, and I don't want to have to go through school. I don't want to have to basically become a slave to the healthcare world. I feel like a lot of people also don't realize when you want to do something like a nurse kind of position, you are going to be a nurse up until the fact that you were like 65, 70 years old. You are literally like wiping people's butts until you were 70 years old, no matter unless you retire early somehow, like you are doing this stuff for a very long period of time. And given the exposure that I was able to get senior year through DECA, that was actually a very big turning point for me, especially with that class in itself and kind of my own personal factors of I was working at a mathnasium before and I was getting more leniency with some background business administration type stuff. And that kind of stuff really opened up my eyes. I feel like a lot of people don't take opportunities as well, even though it should and it might suck sometimes. Um, but through all these different opportunities, I was able to be like, hey, I'm really good at this and I could make money fast. And I can even
mm.
delegate off my time and do maybe marketing on the side and then do social media content creation on this part of my life. And then you can play around with a lot more factors than if you go to a different kind of field of work. So,
Hmm. How do you think social media plays into your educational experience? And or if you even noticed a shift in, like you're trying to manage social media and marketing and be a creator. But, in the educational side of things, you went through high school when social media is exploding and, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook's pretty much dead to the Gen Zs, but right, like, what impact has that had on you or maybe your peers or just things that you've noticed about social media, good or bad, in 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 your educational journey?
truthfully speaking, not good. I feel like it has always been a distraction as much as many people don't really want to reflect on that. I feel like a lot of students decide to take they're just like, oh, like it's whatever. Like I'm just on my phone during class, it's whatever. And I feel like that's super common and normalized, but I feel like at the end of the day that it was a very, very big mistake in my educational journey, considering, I mean, freshman year and part of my sophomore year was all online because of COVID. And all I was doing the entire time was being on my phone, taking a nap or eating. So, social media, I think it can also be good depending on how you want to use it. I mean, more and more, you could play around with the algorithm. So, there's more and more opportunities to learn about different things on social media. I mean, if you watch a bunch of videos on stocks, then guess what? You're going to be watching stocks for probably the next couple months because that's all you've been watching. And it could be a very cool educational experience. But then at the same time, if you're watching cat and dog memes the entire time, then that's probably all you're going to get and it's just going to be a distraction. So I feel like
Hmm.
it's a very gray area thing. You can take it to your advantage or you can take it to your disadvantage.
It's interesting because obviously I was at the DECA competition with Sam, Alli, and I could totally see that change happening and going back to that and going back to that exposure and the experience. Um, I think if I'm hearing you correctly here, and I know the COVID thing happened, yes, that you are dead right. Eating, sleeping, social media was like
Yeah.
that's the big three that everybody, even teachers are on, trust me. But that experience, right? I don't remember a lot of like social media people just kind of sitting around on their phones during that experience, right? I mean, tell us a
For
little bit about
decades,
like
right?
like a Deca, right? Like, I mean, people were posting, yeah, okay, post for Deca, and maybe you were like chatting here and there, but I mean, there was some face-to-face stuff a lot. And then you obviously took a lot of opportunities to kind of meet people and start to branch out your network. How can we bring something like that into school? It's a
That's
big
a
question.
great question. That's a great question with I don't know if I have the answer, but
Yeah.
I feel like being given opportunities to network in a more professional environment, because I feel like part of the reason why I we were more antsy to go on our phones was because it was like, wow, like we're surrounded by all of these smart kids and by all of these business professionals, and this is a competition at the end of the day. I feel like kind of the environment and the vibe and the aesthetic and kind of everything how it was portrayed made it way more like, oh wow, I want to pay attention. Oh wow, like this is a big deal. I feel like making smaller events feel like a bigger deal or even giving them the illusion that it's a bigger deal would go a long way considering I mean there was like the interview mock interviews that we did where it was three schools coming together and kind of doing mock interviews with other business owners to kind of get a feel for how real life interviews go, which I think that was super valuable, but then you have all this free time on your hand in between so that you can go on your phone. So I feel like if there was a way to maximize everyone's time, so that everyone's involved every single minute that the event is running, would be way more powerful in a school environment. And once again, kind of going back to the whole millennial thing that we discussed earlier, I feel like making things seem less cringe to your average high school, middle school, whatever student would be way more entertaining. And even then at DECA, they had some really interesting things going on that we were all laughing about at the table. So I feel like bringing that to like even if it is like a weird experience, then like making light of it and really bringing in community. But then at the end of the day, I feel like it also involves passionate individuals. I feel like at DECA, considering we were all state qualifiers, it was an array of good people who actually wanted to be there, um, with a couple of friends here and there. So I feel like that made the experience worth being there. And then I feel like that's how that could translate to a school
Hmm.
environment.
Yeah.
Mm. I'm hearing a lot of like, the setup is really important. This, perhaps the story, or, you even said like the illusion that it's a big deal, right? So like that buy-in seems to be really, really important to you and likely others, your age and whatnot. So that's a really interesting perspective for educators and those who make decisions about the school environment and what not to hear. So I hope they do hear that in your answer on this episode. I'm so our summer series is, kind of around this idea of being relentless in your pursuit or crushing it. And, that can go in many different ways. And so, as you either think you've been very honest with your answers, like, yeah, I failed chemistry twice. I think we're gonna get, a good perspective from you here. But like either in high school, what would you say? How are you relentless in your pursuit? It doesn't have to be educational or related, it can be outside of school. And or, how are you relentlessly pursuing your next step in this summer or just in general? Because I know Peter was very selective on who he asked to come on this podcast. So I'm curious on your take of what that means to you.
Yeah, so with relentlessness, I feel like it can be that word and that action can be perceived in so many different ways. But I feel like overall, it's just basically doing whatever you can whenever you can. And whether it's bad or good, just still getting something out of the outcome. I feel like a lot of experiences that I've had were more positive than negative. So I feel like my perspective might be a little different than others. So I don't want to speak on the more negative aspect of, having to push through even though maybe you're not getting the best comeback. But with being relentless, I feel like knowing that there's so many opportunities out there, even though it may not seem like it, or even though they're really hard to get, they're basically waiting for you. I mean, they're so like you are a small fish with a bunch of big sharks, but they're willing to eat. Like that sounds like really cheesy to say, but there's so many different people wanting to get other people to have you come work for them, to have you come experience what they have to experience. So I feel like transparency and holding yourself to your most authentic self. I mean, during my interview where it was an organic social media marketing position, and then here I am told that I'm not experienced enough for paid social media marketing, then you know what I did? Now I'm learning about paid social media marketing. So I think just taking a negative and turning it into a positive is really gonna get you far as in a broad spectrum. But then looking at it from a school perspective, I mean, high school is only one like 20th of your life. If you fail something, just redo it. Find a new way to figure it out. I mean, it's tough love at the end of the day, but once you can just get past the turmoil of what high school is, even though it kind of sucks depending on how your school handles stuff and if you've got great teachers or bad teachers. And then once you're through there, I mean, you don't even have to go into college. If you can just stay relentless and figure out something through there, you've made it. So,
It's that's you to a T, which is great. I mean, I love that answer because I was having a conversation with Alli before the podcast, and I'm like, yeah, this is why Sam is on. I felt like in high school, I think everybody had their up days and down days, myself included. I mean, I'm very transparent as well. And I think one of the reasons why like our classroom worked together is because a lot of us were very, very transparent. Just to give you an idea, Alli and the listeners, is we were in an internship class, or I think like 13 students in there. It was small. It was very light. We didn't have tests. We had projects. Some students took advantage, some didn't. It is what it is. But there was something with you, Sam, that was always like, as we grew through the entire year, um, and when I say we, I'm literally the reason I'm still a teacher and I rarely get burned out is because I love learning from the younger generation. And I don't know if all my colleagues are like that, but I know I am. It's pretty cool, and I know that I hope to continue that through the rest of my tenure as an educator. But one thing that you did, Sam, was you started to see like, oh wait, it wasn't every day, and I don't think every student's like just crushing it every day, but you started to see things like, wait, if I did reach out to this person or if I did put this extra thing. I mean, you were the first to set up your LinkedIn and run with it. You were the first to get your portfolio done and then go back in and on spikeview. Um, why? Like, I'm just want to know, is there a secret sauce? Maybe there isn't. Maybe students, I mean, I would call it maturity. I don't know. What would you call it?
I would lean more into the maturity thing, considering one, I'm an only child and I'm
Mhm.
a first gen. My parents are immigrants, so roughly by the age of like 8, 9, 10, I was signing myself up for middle school. So it was
Mhm.
kind of like a you either do it or you're not going to school kind of thing. So I was tossed, I feel like, very early into the adult world, which is why I mean, I have people come up to me at work and they're like, wow, you're only 18, you're not 25 years old. And I'm like, yep, that's me. Like, I don't know, but I feel like it comes with a lot of maturity as far as like in the adult world. I feel like if you were to see me like behind closed doors, I'm not mature at all. But
Neither am I, and I'm pretty sure Alli isn't either.
so I think that there's just like even at least a mask to put on with it. I mean, kind of at the end of the day, I mean, you got to do what you have to do to pass a class. But then also as you start seeing different things that you could pull out of the class into your own personal life, kind of taking advantage of that, I feel like is super important. I mean, I had a study hall class in my first semester because I had dropped chemistry, funny enough. Um, and I used that study hall to basically work on my LinkedIn, work on my Spikeview was second semester, but work on my
Mhm.
LinkedIn, connect with individuals, just kind of trying to maximize my time as much as possible because at the end of the day, then I had to go to work and I really couldn't do anything because I was doing whatever they told me to do.
Mhm.
So I feel like it was also a lot about taking time and running with it. I mean, making my time, like the time I'm given, my own. Considering at school you don't really have much of your own time, especially with my day being cut in half. Um, so even once I was able to finish everything through and make it the best that I could and put out a couple posts here and there, I feel like then it was like, wow, now I have 30 minutes left of class. What should I do? Let me connect with some individuals for 10 minutes. Let me go and have like a little social media break for 5, 10 minutes. Let me go finish a paper for my last English class for another 15 minutes. So I feel like using my time wisely was a very big thing on top of the maturity aspect.
Yeah.
Not all high schoolers are like that. And so they're just not. And but that doesn't mean it's not possible. It's
Mhm.
perspective. And it sounds like you got that perspective at a younger age than most,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of students, and I love that you said this earlier, like this fast tracker, self-paced type environment, like you and many others would probably, once they figured out, like, whatever the event or exposure or whatever, whenever it clicks, whether it's 8 years old, whether it's 10 years old, whether it's 16 years old, once it clicks, I feel like the educational system holds students back at that moment. The traditional model, because, like you said, when when I had 30 minutes, I could get these three things done. I could keep going on my list if I had time. And then, if I had more time, I could probably have explored this or that. It's like the switch was already turned on and there was plenty of your time, I'm sure, that was doing stuff that you were just checking the box. You were just, doing
Mhm.
it because you were told you had to, and not necessarily because, it was like developing your passion. And so just listening to that kind of idea and mindset that you have with it, it's like, I'm excited for your future and where you go to crush it and pursue your time, because what a cool thing, you may know about yourself, you may not, but what I'm hearing is that when you find something that you're passionate about, you're going to pursue it. And like, not everyone has that vision, and so I think as you kind of continue to develop your authentic self, it'll be exciting to see where life takes you, because I don't think we know where that is yet.
I don't either. I don't either.
That's exciting.
Yeah. That's I mean, exactly. I just want to be a little part of the book, that's it, that journey, because it's going to be amazing. Um, One of the biggest questions this is a traditional question on the podcast, but I really love to ask students who have just finished and are going off into their own educational journey. Um, and I'm going to kind of phrase it a little bit different for you, Sam, but like, what would you like high school to look like for the next generation?
Well, okay. So if I was principal, basically,
Hmm.
I kind of how I mentioned previously, I would make some sort of self-paced program. I mean, you can recognize from afar that some kids really just need that structure. Some people need someone to hold their hand and go through it with them, and that's totally fine. I
Hmm.
mean, you got that privilege up until you're done with high school. That's a given. But I also feel like there's some people who need to just be let go, and let them go on their own thing. So I feel like offering online classes where you can, I mean, stay at home till 12 o'clock in your bed, finishing up all your homework and classwork and whatever. And then when you're done, boom, you're off to maybe your next classes that you have to go do labs in person kind of thing. Which, as I'm talking about this sounds more and more like a college structure. But I feel like at that point, I mean, they're doing something right. People are paying to go to college, right? Like they're doing something right. So I feel like also creating more opportunities for exposure as far as, I mean, networking and lobbying kind of opportunities where it's an event and kids can just kind of figure out what they want to do with life. I feel like if there was like a DECA or like a what's it called, HOSA, but for like every single career that there could possibly exist would be such a cool concept. Like if there was like a trades kind of DECA HOSA thing where kids can go learn about stuff that they're passionate about and then compete. I feel like competition always makes things a little bit more fun when it comes to learning, at least from my perspective. And then also I feel like if there was a way to test maturity, test kind of the readiness of people's lives. I mean, if, I mean, we're talking one-on-one and you guys are like, wow, you're so mature. If there was a way to kind of recognize that as people are going into high school and kind of keep track of that, maybe they're having their aha moment in sophomore year rather than freshman year, or vice versa. Maybe they're doing it all the way up until senior year. It's taking them some time to get there. I feel like that would make everyone have a way better high school experience than I personally had. So
I like that. I like that. So we're going to wrap up here, and before we get to your connections and then how people can connect with you, and obviously you're going to throw that TikTok out there again. Alli, I want to hear your final thoughts on this because I know we're going to kind of recap this on the next one. But what are your final thoughts here, Alli?
Oh, there's so much that I'm like, which to choose.
Sure.
The perspective that the one line that I'm just like, and I know we'll dig into it in the next episode, but high school is like 1/20th of your life. It's such a great perspective.
Yeah.
So many people make it so much bigger and then they live in high school for the rest of their lives and they never move on from it. And don't be like that. Like, recognize what it is. It is, of course, it's your formative years, and people change a lot during that time, but it doesn't have to be the only time you change. So I think that is a great perspective, and yeah, like could keep you from staying stuck with memes from 2016 if you were like willing to adapt. So there you go.
I hear 2016 and I'm like, isn't that current? All right, yeah. So thank goodness. Now I know. Sam, before we let you go, how can people connect with you? You're obviously on LinkedIn,
yes.
but how else can people connect with you and maybe see some of the work that you're doing?
Main thing that I'm currently using is TikTok, which is at Grow Up Sam. Literally like Grow Up Sam. So that's the best way to connect with me. Otherwise, I'm always open to talking to people on LinkedIn just because it's the most safe platform to connect with people as far as business and professionally wise goes. I'm always open to new opportunities, especially if it's marketing. So don't be shy, but it's a really long first and last name, so you gotta type that out somewhere on your podcast.
Definitely. Can you give people the correct? I told Alli I'm going to say your last name wrong.
Oh, you want me to pronounce it?
Oh yeah, throw it out
Okay.
there.
It's Samanta Kavaliauskaite.
See, I can't do it. I don't know. There you
Oh,
go.
stop.
Sam, I want to thank you so much for sharing your ideas. I really, really love the thought process of, you really got us thinking about measuring, people's, maturity in are they ready, their readiness throughout high school instead of just at the end. We're gonna probably go deeper on that conversation as well. 1/20th of your life. You've had so many gems on here. Appreciate it. If you want to connect with Sam, take a look at the notes in this one. We'll pass those along to you. For Alli Privitt, I am Peter Hostrawser. Thank you all again for listening to the Disrupt Education Podcast. We'll catch you next week. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Disrupt Education Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Are you ready to disrupt the educational arena you're a part of? For more ways to get involved in the work we do here at Disrupt Education, check us out at disrupteducation.co or find us on LinkedIn at Peter Hostrawser or Alli Privitt.
Our mission here is to help facilitate and amplify changes in the educational system through local initiatives and help you scale them into community movements. Our building network of disruptors in education are working to move beyond scores and grades as the only measure for student learning. If your school district, college, campus, or organization is looking for facilitators of this work, reach out on our website or social media.
And if you have any thoughts or feedback on this week's episode or any episode, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and most importantly, disrupting education.